Fans are taking aim at Trent Baalke, and it's all about Trayvon Walker. I'll tell you more about that today on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Up, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Locked On Jaguars. I am the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, Tony Wiggins. And here on Locked On Jaguars, it's your team every day. And we thank you for making us your first listen. A quick reminder, we are free to subscribe to on our YouTube page. Make sure you go to Locked On Jaguars, subscribe, hit the like button, and make sure you hit that bell so you receive notifications every single time we drop an episode. And if you listen to audio podcasts, wherever you do that, make sure you tap in every single day to make sure you don't miss a show. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Shout out to the everydayers for showing up every single day. And if you're new, you can be an everyday or two. Just come back every single day. I hope you enjoy the show and the content. All right, let's get to this big issue that's going around right now. I guess people are ready to put Trent Baalke back in the circus. And one of the reasons is because the team doesn't have a great pass rush. All right, so we're going to break this down. First, I'm going to be very clear about how I feel, and I'm going to be very clear about how I feel about how they have communicated and how they put out information and about their reasoning for doing things. And I'm not going to justify whether I agree with it or not. I might, but you can listen to the two things and you can decide for yourself. What was my feeling about Trayvon Walker? My feeling about Trayvon Walker is that he's going to be a really, really good NFL player. I still believe that. And I'm not the one thing people that know me won't accuse me of doing is being biased or being a fanboy, because I'm neither one. I like Trayvon Walker as a football player. I had someone that most of y'all know tell me that, and I'm not going to bring them into it because I ain't called them and asked them if I could do it, so I'm not going to mention their name, but I will tell you what they told me. During the build-up to that draft, this person was enamored with the big kid, the big Davis kid that Philly drafted with their first round pick the same year from Georgia. And I think I was standing with this person at the draft party, and they flat out told me. I said, "What do you think about Trayvon?" He said, "Well, I wouldn't necessarily draft a guy like that number one overall, and I'll get to that too, right?" But he says, "I will tell you this." Jordan Davis is the kid I was talking about. He says, "I will tell you this. I talked to two SEC offensive coordinators from good teams last year, and this was the year. This was during the draft process, so this was the year that it just ended. Trayvon's last year at Georgia, and I was talking about Jordan Davis. This is what the guy told me, and I'm going to go verbatim. And he said, both of them told me that's not the problem with them. The problem with them is number 44. This is what this guy told me, and I trust him. He's going to hear this, and he's going to probably text me when he hears this, but I trust him. And you would trust him too if I told you who told me that. So there were other people that thought. There was also rumors that during the draft process that prospects from Georgia in interviews was asked, all right, so it's so many of y'all here, who's the best player? And all of them said that Walker was the best player on their team. The draft is about prospect. It's about the likelihood that someone ends up over a long period of time better than somebody else. It's not about who's more ready to play. It's not about taking exactly what you did in college and thinking that you can't do that same thing in the NFL. It's not about, some of the things don't translate, right? Because when you get to the league is a big boy league. And that's why they love to draft big boy athletes. Because those coaches believe that they can do whatever, but they can't teach big and fast. Okay. So I hear people all the time say he only had 6 sacks at Georgia. If I told you that Michael Parsons only had 6.5 at Penn State, would you believe me? Because it's true. Now, he only played 2 years. That's his freshman and sophomore year, because his junior year was a COVID year. I believe he did not play, even when other people were playing, he didn't play. So we never saw that last season, where he probably would have got 10 and we wouldn't even be having this conversation. The bottom line is teams didn't see him actually do what he does with relative ease in the National Football League. In retrospect, my favorite prospect in that draft was actually Kayvon Thibodeau. And I'm on record for that. And everybody knows it. I don't hear Giant fans angry at Thibodeau because they didn't pick number 1. See, so let me get on this number 1 thing here as we, I don't want to get out of the first segment before I bring this up. And I'll just have to break Trayvon down a little bit more in segment 2. The thing is that, and I know what everybody's saying, nobody cares. Well, you should care, because you know what? This is the same fan base that didn't want Yannick Ngakoue, that was angry at Yannick Ngakoue and justified the team letting him go. A guy that's top 10 in sacks in the league since he's been in the league and top 10 in forced fumbles in the league. They justified it, and they believed that the team was right by not paying him because he doesn't play the run. All he does is get sacks. They further justify that by the fact that he's on like his 5th team since he left, the 4th or 5th team. Maybe the 5th team he's played for, but 4th since he left Jacksonville a few years ago. But now the anger is that Trayvon does everything well except rush the passer, and people say that's not who you take number 1. Let me tell you about number 1 picks. Number 1 picks are not monolithic from year to year. If I take you to a corner dollar store, whichever one you frequent, and I say you can go in there and you can pick, you got first pick to eat, whatever you get is what you're going to eat tonight. But then I take you by a big fancy store like Kroger, and I tell somebody else, you go in there and the first thing you pick up, no matter what it is, you get. So you're going to come out of Kroger with a prime rib, and you come out with a pack of lunch meat from the dollar store. That's the way drafts are. They're not the same. They're just not the same. Each and every year, the talent level is different. There's some pet peeves I have about the draft, and that's one of them, that everyone thinks when you hear number 1 overall pick, well, maybe the year earlier he would have been the 10th pick, and maybe the year after that, when Trevor Lawrence came out, he would have been the 10th pick. That's just the way that it goes sometimes, and that's the way things break down, and it happens that way. That's just the way it is sometimes. You don't get to pick and choose when you have the number 1 pick how good the prospects in the draft are. And every single time Aidan Hutchinson plays on TV and he does well, this is what happens. And I get it, because the fans just want people. So I got a news flash for you. Putting together everything that I know and how many times Trent Baalke has opened his mouth without provocation and just basically criticized Hutchinson as being a one-trick pony, and all he does is one thing, and I've heard this from several people. He was never taking that kid anyway. So every time you see Aidan Hutchinson play, go ahead. Don't get mad at Trayvon, because if it wasn't Trayvon, it wasn't going to be Hutch. And I don't think it's going to be Thibodeau either. I got inside information from that. They weren't feeling Thibodeau, which is also a mistake. Who could it have been? Sauce Gardner, maybe? Or the Icky kid, the lineman out of NC State? If they'd have taken Icky, they still wouldn't have the pass rush. I'm going to get into more of this in just a second. because I have to try to break this down to make sense of it. First, I got to let you know that today's sponsor is DoorDash. That's right, but it's different. It's DoorDash grocery. That's right. We just talked about going to the grocery store, right? So if you're missing the syrup for your pancakes early in the morning and you don't feel like driving, or you can't, or just ran out of your favorite coffee creamer, with DoorDash grocery delivery, you can get what you want right when you need it. Love the convenience of getting what you want right to your door with DoorDash grocery delivery. You can stock up for the week or order last minute cravings conveniently. Now, you know DoorDash has for years done a fabulous job of bringing you your food from some of the best restaurants in your area. Well, now they can do it from the grocery store too. Get 50% off your first DoorDash order up to $20 value when you use the code LOCKEDONNFL at checkout. Limited time offer, terms apply. That's 50% off up to $20, no minimum subtotal, and zero delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter the code LOCKEDONNFL. Don't forget, that's LOCKEDONNFL. That's your code for 50% off your first order with DoorDash. All right, so we're breaking down Trayvon Walker. Shout out to Mama Walker. I know you probably listen if you're not overseas. So I'm not going easy on Trayvon. Trayvon Walker needs to play better. Trayvon Walker needs to disengage. Somebody just needs to tell him that when you're rushing a passer, even if you're backing him up, it's not like tug of war, okay? If you don't get around him and get to the quarterback, he won. I don't care how bad it looked. I don't care if you had him on skates. I don't care if he was hanging on by a thread. Does not matter. He won. Don't let them get their hands on you. I think a lot of this criticism comes because Detroit has been on TV multiple times. And the times they're on TV, Aidan Hutchinson really does flash. But the biggest part of this, I think, started after the Houston game. They had 4 linemen who didn't even normally start playing. They had given up 11 sacks in 2 weeks, and we didn't get home not once. And C.J. Stroud sliced us up. I think that's the problem. You ask why. Let me try to help you real quick. Does the kid need to play better? Absolutely. In the pass rush? Absolutely. Is pass rush still either number 1 or number 2 with the problems that are on this team? Yes, it is. Is Josh Allen in top 10s? Is he a top 10 player when it comes to pressures? Yes, he is. But he's not getting sacks either. But everybody always says it's not about sacks, it's about pressure. Is Trayvon very high when it comes to pressure? He is not. Some of this has to go on Brenton Buckner, Coach Buckner. Some of this has to go on whoever is lining them up the way that they're lining them up. Me personally, I think they need to go to a 4-man front and let Trayvon play the big end position. I don't like him standing up. I think when he stands up, he gets off to a running start and the guys see him coming. You can stand a lot of guys up and that's an advantage for him. I don't think it's an advantage for him. I think his advantage is his strength, his long arms. And I think that works at a better advantage when he's close to the action. And immediately, as soon as that snap, he's right in the face of whoever has to deal with it. The other thing is their pass rush situations are not the same as a lot of other people, including these teams that are winning. Because when you're losing, teams have a tendency to take the little 5-yard pass, run the ball, throw a slant, roll the quarterback one way or the other. And then when half the time Trayvon isn't even rushing the passer, he's running out in the flat with a running back, doing what he's supposed to do. And he told me in an interview that I posted on this, he says, I'll never go outside of the scheme. He says, because I like my job. I didn't ask him if he liked the scheme, and I don't think he would have answered. And I wouldn't ask him to say that because I don't want to have a gotcha moment and put a dude, in bad light and have him saying things about his coaches or whatever. But if I guessed, I don't think he's in love with the scheme at all. So I'm not totally absolving Trayvon Walker of his lack of production. But I am saying that there's more layers to this than meets the eye. I'll tell you that the people in the building, the decision makers in that building, do not think Josh Allen is the number one pass rusher. They absolutely do not. This is me talking. This isn't anybody else talking. I get the feeling they believe if Josh was better, Trayvon would be better. The same way for 3 years after Yannick Ngakoue left, that people thought Josh Allen was suffering those 2.5 years because he didn't have anybody on the other side, and he needs somebody on the other side to help him be better. And you're putting all of that on a rookie. A guy that when he got drafted, I believe he was 20 years old. I think he needs to play big end, and then I think on running downs, on obvious passing downs, he needs to line up at the 3 technique and use some of that quickness and his length as opposed to just bull rushing everyone and trying to long arm everyone. You can work all off season, but just like in boxing, as soon as you get hit, you go back to your habits. Throughout the preseason, he didn't play much, but in the first game of the year, I saw a different Trayvon Walker. The last 2 games, I saw the same Trayvon Walker. Well, I did see he did have Jawan Taylor in a little bit of a blender, and that's probably some familiarity, but Taylor held him on a play that would have been a sack. He was this close to hitting CJ. I think he actually did hit CJ Stroud, but CJ had already thrown the ball, but he was that close to having another sack. So my thing is if he gets 1 sack against CJ Stroud, we're probably not having this conversation. But this is not a 1 sack conversation. This is not, you're not terrible because you're not getting 1 sack. And that's what I want people to understand. Nobody would say anything had he got it. If he had 2 sacks after 3 games instead of 1 sack after 3 games, nobody say a word, even if the Jaguars had lost. Because we pay attention to these numbers as if these numbers tell the whole story, and they don't. But in this case, you got a reason to be upset because the Jaguars have 3 number 1 picks, first round picks as their top 3 edge rushers, and it's the weakest part of the team. On multiple occasions, I have heard Doug Peterson out of his own mouth say Trayvon's fine, Josh needs to play better. That was last year. With pass rush being such a need, not only in Jacksonville, but around the entire league, with Josh Allen sitting there on a 5th-year option and not being re-signed already, when they know they have to re-sign Trevor Lawrence in the future, and they have the cap space right now to go ahead and do it, and they haven't, that tells you how they feel about him. I'm going to get into more of this. Why is Aidan Hutchinson on their mind so much? And how come every time he does something, the fans go crazy? I'll tell you why. It's because they believe Trent Baalke made a mistake, and Baalke is back in not only the doghouse of the fans, but all of the draftniks and all of the experts that are online are going after him, saying he made a colossal mistake. Matt Miller even said that him picking Travon Walker and Hutchinson falling to Detroit was the biggest reason why Detroit has turned it around. I don't believe that for one bit. But that's what he said. Discuss more of this, all of this stuff in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. First, I have to let you know about the Gametime app. That's right. Get the Gametime app or go to gametime.co and get you some tickets. Now, not for the London game. This works in the United States, right? But there have been times I've needed and wanted tickets, and at the last minute, I didn't know where to get them. Mayweather Pacquiao was one of them. I don't know if Gametime existed back then, but boy, I sure would have used Gametime, because Gametime is the absolute truth, and you can get in on the action by going to Gametime, getting the app in the App Store, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. I mean, we're running it down here on Locked On NFL once again. Locked On NFL, Locked On Jaguars. Your boy just got too many podcasts. I can't say I have too many podcasts. This is a hard show, but it's a very, very difficult show because I like Trayvon Walker. I like his family. I like what he stands for, how hard he works, how much he wants to do well. He needs to get better. He needs to play better. I think he knows that. I think the Jaguars can help him. Put his hand on the ground. Put him closer to the action at the very beginning. Let him rush a whole bunch more than you're dropping him back and dropping him out in coverage. Just let him play and try to eat and get the quarterback and stay close to the line of scrimmage. He does a lot of intangibles. He does a lot of things well. He brings a lot of physicality to the team. He chases the run down. He's never out of a play. He's always all over the place. He's just not getting the quarterback sacks that everyone loves, and everyone is hanging on the number one pick. If the Jaguars had moved down to 5 and he got picked 5th, they still wouldn't have a pass rush. But y'all wouldn't be as upset because everybody is clinging to that number 1 overall pick. And they're clinging to the fact that every time Aidan Hutchinson is on TV, he plays well. Ask yourself this: is every time Aidan Hutchinson is on TV, is his team winning? Are they ahead? Who they're playing? Ask yourself that. I can't make any excuses for him for the Houston game. That's just a bad overall game for everybody on that line, not just him, all of them. But I suspect because C.J. Stroud was getting banged up so much in the first 2 weeks that, I don't know, maybe their coaches did a whole lot of damn coaching and motivating, right, and got that line to play better. I think the Jaguar coaches need to do a better job of knowing who their personnel is and what they can and can't do. Like, why didn't they help that rookie Anton Harrison against Chris Jones? Did somebody not tell them that Chris Jones is lining up on obvious passing situation, that he's lining up at left defensive end? Chris Jones is a first ballot Hall of Famer with a bullet. And you got a rookie that missed a lot of time out there trying to guard him on an island. Help him. On 3rd and 4th and 1, stop throwing the ball 40 yards downfield. So these are the coaches. I'll get to Balky in a second. Doug always says it. Doug Peterson always says we got to put guys in the right spot. Then do it. Don't you practice that stuff? Well, what do you mean you got to put them in the right spot? If they're in a spot, that's where you thought was right, correct? So at some point, you got to say, we're doing this wrong. Trayvon Walker's play improved last year when he primarily played with his hand on the ground at the end of the season before he had a high ankle sprain. And I think he has told someone he's more familiar and plays better with his hand on the ground. Bill Polian, and I don't agree with everything Bill Polian used to say, but Bill Polian said one time, never pay a free agent to do something that you didn't think he could do. I'm thinking the same thing with the draft, with the exception of most kids that's coming out of college are going to be asked to do things that they didn't do all the time. Right? Some people, I had a guy come into my other business this week and even criticize Georgia. He said Georgia's hurting all their players because they do that with all of them. They didn't prepare them for the NFL. They prepared them to win in college. I don't know how true that is, but we can't just keep blaming everybody else for this. If you think they should have taken somebody else, and that's magnified by the fact that they also didn't take another player that everyone thought they were going to take, Brian Branch, who's playing extremely well, and the Jaguars still need help. I even criticized them for not taking DeJuan Jones, who went like the 3rd or 4th round, and they used the 1st round pick on Anton Harrison. I'm not sure Anton Harrison is a better right tackle than DeJuan Jones. They took a guy who was a left tackle in college. He played right tackle one time in college. And they put him at right tackle. And I'm sure that's not his favorite position to be in. I just think all of this experimenting and it's not really working and it's not going. And somebody said, well, you got to give Balky time because of the great draft he had during the Urban Meyer year. Urban Meyer had a lot to do with those guys he picked. They picked everybody that Urban recruited, and he knew. Did I just sideways give that man credit? I think he's a bad coach, but I think he's a good talent evaluator from college and high school. I just don't think he's a great coach. But Trent Baalke's back in hot water with everybody, man. Paying attention to those traits. Baalke went from having a clown emoji to being everybody's, oh man, we cool. We missed the boat on Trent, man. We were too hard on him. We look silly now. We're winning. To right back there because the team isn't playing well. And that's fine. I don't care. Fans can do and say whatever they want to. They spend their money, and even if people who don't spend their money, they can watch and come to whatever conclusion they want to come to, and they can do and say whatever they want. I do not care. And I'm glad they express themselves with passion. I love it. But I'll tell you this. Aidan Hutchinson wasn't going to be a Jaguars. We can let that one go. I don't think he was coming here. He said something about his arms being short, and he said, I guess my arms ain't long enough or whatever. And I heard Detroit actually liked Trayvon Walker. But they would probably have taken Sauce Gardner because, and unlike Aidan, Sauce didn't want to stay home. He wanted to get out of Detroit. He didn't want to go back there. So this is just going to keep going on and on and on and on until this happens. Trayvon Walker gets a couple of sacks in one game. I think they need to play ahead. I think he needs to stop dropping in coverage so much. I think they need to run more of a four-man front than having him standing up on the outside. It's just awkward to me seeing a 6'5", 275-pound dude standing up like he's a wide receiver. It's weird. It's weird. Schematically, I don't think that this is the best scheme for him. If they go to a three-man front, he still needs to have his hand on the ground and be the smaller member of that line. But the problem is that position is being occupied by 6'5", 290-pound Roy Robertson Harris. I don't know. I don't have the answers. The answers is he needs to play better. And some of these narratives will go away. But I know that it feels like to me that there were people who were sitting on the edge waiting, just waiting. That the second things went bad, they were going to jump all over Trent Baalke about not taking Aidan Hutchinson, which is cool. Like I said, it comes with the territory. So there's two things. You could be mad that they didn't take Hutchinson or mad that they took Walker instead of Hutchinson. It was either Trayvon or somebody else, in my opinion. So I think there's a lot of things we all have to factor in. And one of them is they're two different guys, but I don't care what the tail of the tape says. They're not really built alike, in my opinion. One guy's 6'7", 260, and the other guy's 6'5", 272, 274. But when you watch their bodies, it's not the same. So I don't know where they're going to get no rush from. I mean, this is a team that held on to Kayvon Chason. They should have done something in free agency. The problem with doing something in free agency is this: if you overspend, then at some point somebody you already have on the team has to sit down. This is why I kept telling them. I kept saying they need to trade Josh Allen, and everybody got mad at me. No, don't get mad at me. If you need to get better at that position, and the reason why you're not better is because you're already committed to somebody, and you can't pay another guy because it doesn't make fiscal sense, then that means you need to move somebody to go out and get somebody else. Josh Allen's probably going to be out of here next year, and the Jaguars would have gotten nothing for it. You'll get something from me every single time right here on Locked On Jaguars. Just make sure you tap in every single day. Postcast right after the game on Sunday. Remember, the game starts early. Make sure you don't miss it. We'll see you next time here on Locked On Jaguars.